I'm Sarah Pilling, and Robin Mann. We've sort of brought this thing to fruition wherever it is. And would the other people who are on our green team please stand up? Katrina Ogilvie, Ruth Mooney, and Dan Burnham. There are eight of us, plus including what I think is really important is we have two of the high schoolers, Allie Bauer and Becca Zajac. So it's an interesting team. Some people were a little pooped out after last night. So I thought we'd start by beginning to reviewing what is Ready for 100. If I haven't, Robin or I or any of us haven't beaten your ear about it before, this is it. Ready for 100 was started by the Sierra Club. They act as a resource. They don't exactly tell us what to do. They just offer things, but it's very much of a grassroots energy. So it's a movement of people across the United States working to inspire our leaders to embrace a vision of healthier communities powered by clean, renewable energy. So we're asking residents and civic leaders to commit to this, to solutions to achieve 100% renewable energy by the year 2050. It's 2035 for heat. It's 2050 for transportation and energy. Transportation is going to be a little difficult. So Robin and I went to meetings for almost a year in Swarthmore once a month, and we brought the resolution to Radnor, and it was approved on the 25th of February, 2019. And these are some of the local communities who are involved in Ready for 100. Southeast Pennsylvania is a hot spot. There are actually, if you include Philadelphia, which has made the commitment, there are 24 communities in Chester, Montgomery, and Delaware County who have signed resolutions. There are another 24 who are working on it. So it's a movement. And the wonderful piece of it is that we all work together. We help each other, we provide flyers, we give tips, we go to meetings for them, we support other people. So it's really become a community. Ready for 100 is nationwide. Across the country, 141 municipal entities have signed on to Ready for 100. City of Chicago, Denver, Aspen, Boulder, New Hampshire. It's quite amazing. But again, Southeast Pennsylvania is a hot spot. So the big issue is greenhouse gases, one of which is carbon dioxide. And you can see the relationship of carbon dioxide and temperature over the 20th century. I don't think anybody could have been here this summer and not realized we had some sort of a heat problem because it was really bad. So DVRPC, which is the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission, I guess, has done quite a study of Radnor, of all of the entities in Delaware Valley. But you can see that 24% of ours is residential, and that's really the low-hanging fruit. What can we do to reduce our carbon footprint? Commercial's high, mobile highway, that'll be interesting. But the really good news is there's something new every single day. It's almost impossible to keep up and be current with the news because the technology and the opportunities for entrepreneurship and jobs is increasing every day. So we did the resolution and then we formed the green team. We didn't have to coerce anybody. Some volunteered and others went and said, I can do this. And we're working as a team. The benefits of our energy conservation and efficiency, which is the lowest fruit, is we'll reduce emissions, we'll use more renewable energy, which I know John Kelly and Michael Schneller will talk about. It will enhance the quality of life. I think some people don't realize that climate change has a negative effect. And one of the members of our team, Dr. Ruth Levy, she and Dr. Michael Mann have just produced a paper on what climate change does to seniors. It'll be interesting to see it. There is an absolute clear definition of the increase in jobs. It's just amazing. Consumer savings, yes, we can save, and there's also a cost that we can avoid. So that's important too. So expanding solar and wind energy is available, and we're scheduled to have a meeting on the 12th of November. If we can pin down the last speaker, we're going to talk about solar and the possibilities. But as the cost goes down, the availability goes up dramatically. And you can see the wind cost. It's coming down to the same level as the price of electric energy from Michael's business. So that's a very short description of it. I'm very pleased, or Robin and I and the committee are very pleased tonight to first introduce Michael Schneller from PECO. He's the man in charge of the energy audits. I called him the man, and he said, well, you can call me the man, but probably I would want to mention that he's a senior energy auditor and market outreach specialist for PECO assessment program. He holds a degree in sustainability with a focus on renewable energy systems. So, Michael, it's wonderful to have you, and go ahead. And how many did you say you signed up at the Chester County tour?
54 people signed up so far, so there's more. Well, hello, everybody. My name's Mike Schneller. I work for PECO indirectly, actually. Our company's called Clear Result, and we handle the energy reduction program for PECO, as well as many other utilities in the nation. I'm going to talk about and discuss our program tonight as far as what we do at an audit. And let's just see here. Has anybody here had an energy audit done on their house or an assessment? 4 of you? Does it? Nice, nice. That is one aspect of it. You get free light bulbs out of the deal, which is good. And a lot of good advice, which we're going to go over, a report. And basically, I'm here to tell you how the program works and how you can get involved. In order to achieve 100% renewable or 100% clean energy, we have to reduce our usage. I believe the statistic is 3.1%. Otherwise, we're never going to get there. So we have to reduce, and I'm going to focus on the 24% that you mentioned for the township. That's our goal, is to have residential, that's the program we're involved in, reduce as much as possible. We don't sell Teslas, and we don't do commercial installations. But you can do your part. It's a simple thing. It doesn't cost much to do to go to full. A little closer.
Mic to the mic.
Mic to the mic. I don't want to shout. I have a tendency of shouting. That's what I was told at home anyway. I shout too much. So anyway, the program is called PECO Energy Assessments. Has everybody heard of it? Heard of the program? Get a thing in there's been advertisements on television and some other things, so, and also in your bill. So anyway, there's basic things you can do. Replace old lighting, which if you're going to have an audit done, you wait for us to come in and we'll do that for you. Set back your thermostat. I mean, these are common sense things, but a lot of people forget to do them. And every little thing adds up. It could be 1%, and if you do 20 things, then it's 20% savings, which that's significant. Maintain your heating and cooling equipment. Weather strip your doors, set your hot water heater to 120. Lock your windows, and it's getting cooler now. We open and close the windows a lot. It's warm during the day. We forget to lock them at night. And it's not for security, although it's good to have them locked for security reasons, but it's more that when the window is not locked, it's open a very little bit, maybe 1/16 of an inch. And if you have 16 windows, that's an inch. So it's like having one window open a crack the whole time. So if you forget to lock them in the extreme weather, in the summer or in January, you are basically heating or cooling the outside. We want to try to avoid that because that translates into money. How many people have an extra refrigerator in the basement or a garage, anything like that? Yeah. Do you use it? Is it full? Full of beer, maybe? No, full of stuff. If you don't use it all the time, like just for holidays, you might want to empty it and turn it off and just use it for parties and holiday times, because it does use an awful lot of electricity as far as your appliance section of your house. We also have a rebate program if you want to return them, a recycle program, where we'll come and pick the old refrigerator up, so long as it's working. We'll give you $75 for it, and we refurbish them, or repurpose the machinery that's inside. But the best thing you can do is have an energy audit or energy assessment performed on your home, and that's why I'm here tonight. Basically, we are all certified BPI advisors. BPI is the Building Performance Institute. It's organization's been around 30 years or so. That's started in Saratoga, New York, and it basically standardizes the weatherization sector of construction, if that makes any sense. But it sets standards for how you address certain things in the attic, in the basement, in the crawl spaces. It talks about airflow, health and safety, and a lot of other things. We are third party, so you get an unbiased evaluation of your home. We're not trying to sell you anything except that to be energy efficient. That's basically what we do. Typically, an audit or assessment lasts about an hour or two, unless you have an all-electric house, and then it's a little more in-depth, and that's about 3 or 4 hours, depending. The standard fee is $25 for a quick one and $50 for the full audit. The $50 just went up last month. So, but if you were to have an energy engineer come in and assess your home, it's typically $300 to have that done. So it's a pretty good deal. We always encourage people to go to the PICO website. Is anybody here logged into their account to either pay their bill or look at their usage? Have you gone in to see how many kilowatt hours you use per hour? Down to the hour. It's pretty interesting, right? Because you can get in there and check to see, like, when you're away, how much is the refrigerator costing me when I'm away, because everything else is off. So you can actually go back and look and see how much your ultimate base load is, and whatever. You can look at some certain things. When the kids come home to visit, you can say, you cost me $50 because I can prove it to you on my bill. Anyway, it's interesting stuff, and you can take a look at it. You can also compare yourself to your neighbors. We always encourage, anytime you buy anything that uses electricity, you want to check for rebates, because more than likely what you're buying is either Energy Star or is efficient enough to qualify for the many rebates that are out there. And there's a lot of money sitting there that's not being used, believe it or not. We also handle the rebates program, and it's busy, but there's a lot of things being sold that aren't being claimed. So. Anyway, the final thing is to go on to PA Power Switch for eligible generation companies. PICO is not a generator, by the way. We don't care where you get your electric from as far as a third party. But we do encourage you to go on and shop rate and see, rate those companies as well. But be warned, there's, at the audit, we show you how to read your bill. And a lot of times, that thing in the middle there, that message center, that's the price to compare. So anybody who's trying to sell you something, I know they call up and say they're PICO, and that's the number one complaint. It's not us. We don't solicit. We don't care where you get your electric. If you have a meter, we have to provide power to that meter. We're a distribution company. So anyway, that's the price to compare. And then on the left there would be what you're paying in the generation supply portion of it. And these are things that the auditor will go over in the house with you, so you'll have that ready. And basically, they'll try to establish a base load for your electric, which would be appliances, lighting, things like that, hot water heater if you have electric hot water heater, and anything above that line would be considered part of to do with your envelope or your heating and cooling. And then there's a cost associated with that. And then if you have a gas furnace, who has a gas furnace in here? Or a boiler, most people, right? So your hot water is the minimal part of it. Like in the summer, it's hardly anything, maybe $10, $15 a month for your hot water, which is very reasonable. But then it spikes up in the wintertime. So we try to give you opportunities to trim that, to reduce that by doing certain things around the house that'll help with that. A rule of thumb, like this house here was about 1,500 square feet, this example, and their total usage or dollar amount was $1,758 a year, roughly. So for Department of Energy comes up with statistic analysis of what an average house should cost for their utilities, and it's about a dollar a square foot per year, if that makes any sense. So that house should be like $1,500, not $1,700 or $1,800. So to me, that means there's room for improvement. It means that there's either inadequate insulation, either the house is very leaky, maybe it's an equipment issue, who knows? But when we first sit down at the table and go over this, we look for opportunities where we could save you money or make improvement, which would also improve your comfort in the home as well, and health. So one thing, if you notice there on the left is electric, and then in December and January, there's a bump up. You see that? Those two spikes there? What do you think that is in December and January? Anybody? Space heater. There's a space heater going on. So their regular heat is gas, and they figured they'd turn the thermostat down and put the space heater on. However, it's costing them more than the air conditioning to run that space heater. So just beware. Space heaters, they're a little tiny thing, but boy, do they use a lot of electricity. So just be careful of that. And those are the kind of things we look for and we point out during the audit. This is a basic graphic of airflow in a house. There's a lot of vectors and thermodynamics and fluid dynamics happening in a home. You have air that's heated in the house, and it goes basically through the attic floor into the attic and escapes. And then all that air that's leaving has to be replaced, so it pulls in from the bottom of the structure. That's just the physics behind it. So there's a section of the house called the rim joist, which goes around the foundation on top of the foundation wall. A lot of time it's very vulnerable, or it's not even insulated, or it's got pipe holes and wire holes and all this stuff, or it's just, it's concrete and wood and then something else maybe, and those things expand and contract at different rates. So there's going to be leakage through there. And it pulls in. Your house actually acts like a big chimney, more or less. You have air going through the top, and it pulls in through the bottom. And what we try to do is recommend to seal all of that, to keep the air in the house for a longer period of time. Energy efficiency is really about creating a good boundary between you and the outside, however that's established. Whether it's caulk around windows, spray foam insulation, or that would be your air sealing, and then your thermal boundary would be insulation, like in the top. Anybody have any questions on any of that? Yes? Yes, they own the grid. I mean, yes, well, parts of the grid. Their section of the grid. The substations, the transmission lines, all of that. So when you use less, they don't have to maintain it as much. That's part of why they are doing these programs. Not only is it because of Act 129, which mandates that they have reduction in usage, but also it affects their bottom line, because if everybody would use less when somebody builds anew, they don't have to accommodate for that. And if they have to put a new substation in or a new circuit, per se, that's very expensive for them to do that. So they just assume have everybody use less, and then they'd be able to accommodate the new housing that's going in or whatever. So what to expect at the audit? I mean, basically you're going to get energy-saving light bulbs, LED light bulbs. If you have an electric hot water heater, you'll get shower heads if you want, and we'll wrap the pipes in the hot water heater. But more importantly, you'll get a detailed report of recommendations for your home. And simple, well, basically the light bulbs, there's a basic calculation here. If you have one 60-watt light bulb and use it 4 hours a day, if you put an LED light bulb in, it's going to save you $10 a year roughly, which is, statistics, but it definitely will add up. So if you have, 10 light bulbs, it's $100 a year. That's pretty significant.
And it's important, Mike, that for Katrina, you not only get the light bulbs, but the guy who's doing the audit installs them.
Yes, we install the bulbs too. So if you have chandeliers, if you have, things that need to be cleaned, sometimes I'm up on the ladder and said, hand me a paper towel, so we'll dust the light fixtures for you too while we're up there, typically. So anyway, that's one thing we do. And a shower head will save you about $60 a year if you have an electric hot water heater. I mean, you should probably get a low flow shower head anyway, even if you have gas, because it's going to save you on your water bill. it'll save you a little bit on your gas bill as well. But every bit it helps.
Got a bunch of CFC light bulbs in the house. Should I replace those?
CF, yes, they're a little less efficient than LEDs. They have a trace amount of mercury in them, so you have to put them in a plastic bag and bring them to compact fluorescent light bulb is a CFL. And we use LED, which is a light emitting diode, basically a computer circuit that doesn't create any heat. See, in an incandescent bulb, about 90% of the energy is transferred into heat and only 10% light. In an LED light bulb, it's just the opposite. It's about 10% heat and 90% luminescence. So you have a dramatic difference, and that's why you can save. That's why light bulbs are the low-hanging fruit. We talked about that. It's a real simple thing you can do. More importantly, though, is the envelope of the building and tightening it up and adding the right amount of insulation. This is an example of a report real quick. It's this person got $113 worth of bulbs. You can see there's no cost, and it would save them about $150 a year. Now, granted, that's statistical analysis, but it could be more than that. If you have exterior lights, they can really add up. If you have a light that's on all night or you have it on a timer and it's an incandescent bulb, I mean, I was in a house once and I couldn't figure out why their usage was so high. And I went outside, and in the bushes there was a halogen light bulb in there. It was 300 watts, and they had 10 of them throughout the property to illuminate the house and the trees and everything, but just fine. But they were incandescent, basically, and it turned out to be $50 a month to keep those lights on. Now, granted, the bulbs would have cost about $200 to replace all 10 of them, but in 6 months, it would have paid for itself, no problem. Yes?
When we did our inspection, I was looking at that, which lights, which ones do you use the most?
Yes.
And those are the ones he wanted to recommend light bulbs for and to
Yep,
recommend.
that's true.
And
Well,
then the different ways.
yep, typically the kitchen, is a good one. But if you have a guest room that you're never in, you could put the best light bulb in the world. If you never turn it on, it doesn't really matter much, So that's the way we look at it. So anyway, this is the report. You get a picture of your house and, what you get, basically. Some recommendations as far as equipment. We have tune-ups for your AC and heat pumps. Basically, it's a pretty good rebate there. We talk, if it's appropriate, we'll talk about the refrigerator recycling program. And then the recommendations, typically every house needs air sealing. Not always, but some houses are really tight, but most of the time they need air sealing. And there are rebates involved with this when you want to have work done. Attic insulation, not every house needs insulation, nor is it cost effective to add more. But if you only have 8 inches of insulation up there, more than likely going to 14 inches is definitely going to save you some money over time. And it won't be a huge dramatic difference, but it'll be enough and it'll be cost effective over time. It adds value too. You'll also get a bunch of miscellaneous recommendations on there. This is up to the auditor's discretion, what they want to have in there. But it's all good stuff. You read it over, and you can't sleep at night. You look at it. They'll include pictures of what you have. Now, this house is insufficient. Should be about 13 inches or more. They have approximately 8 inches of insulation. Even though, see how it is, they have like probably 3 inches of fiberglass and then a few more inches of cellulose jumped up, whatever that is, sawdust put on top of that. Now, you can leave that in there and just add more, but you have to go underneath all that and seal it first. See those wires going through? Those create penetrations in the attic floor. And if you pull all that up and seal it, and chimney chases and everything else that's going on up there, recessed lighting, there's all these little penetrations. And you don't feel it per se, but they can add up to be, as big as a window being open, as big as a clipboard, let's say. And it all adds up. So if you seal all that, you're keeping the air in the house a longer period of time, which is a whole lot easier to condition. Some other recommendations. Oh, that thing on the top, we just added this, the carbon reduction calculation. So just the light bulbs alone will save, I don't know why they have coal in there, 829 tons of coal, I think. Yeah. 12 and a half trees, and 1,800 miles in your car, just for those light bulbs. They should have millimeters of ocean level that doesn't rise. That's what I tried to get them to do. That'd be very difficult, though, to figure that calculation. It might probably be nanometers per household. So, and of course, if there's any questions, the advisor is your advisor. You can always ask them. You can always call them, email them. If you want to get a proposal from one of our illustrious weatherization contractors, you call them up, and you can send the proposal to your auditor and advisor, and they can look it over. There is PICO pricing, and there may be some rebates involved with that as well. So we monitor all of that. And these are HVAC contractors in case you need upgrading equipment. If you use a PICO participating contractor, you'll get a higher rebate than if you just use your regular contractor. All right, so one other thing, I'm a realtor for the last 20 years as well, a broker, and was president of the board and a lot of different things. Got into energy efficiency about 6 years ago. Well, more longer, but 6 years formally. And what does energy efficiency do for real property? Well, the number one thing, National Association of Realtors identifies certain aspects of the buyer, what their criteria are, and comfortable living is like the number one thing. So if you can provide a comfortable house, sell a comfortable house, it sells faster and for a higher price. And a lot goes to that. There's health and safety. When you insulate and air seal properly, you're increasing the health and safety of the home. Protects your investment, lowers the expenses. If it's an investment property, your net operating income increases. There's a lot to this. I'm not going to get into it too much because it could be a whole nother discussion. A HERS rating. Does anybody know what a HERS is? It's a home energy rating system. It's not so prevalent around here in this part of the country, but in other parts of the country, it is paramount that you have a HERS rating or a HERS index done on your home before you sell it, or even in process, point of sale. So that can maybe slow down a process, or they're just on their game. And believe it or not, Texas is the number one HERS rating state in the country, believe it or not, which is interesting. But they know energy, and they know if they use less, they're going to make more money. So that's part of it. And it does increase your appraised value when you have a lower HERS rating. So a net zero energy home is a 0 on the index. That means it doesn't use any energy. It's very efficient, any outside energy, that is. So an average house is about 40 or 50. You know, a lousy house in, let's say, Elkins Park, that has, is very leaky, old, no insulation, and bad, may be close to 100 as far as a rating goes. So I just want you to know about that. Mortgage brokers are actually the ones pushing this system because they realize that the lower the carrying cost, the more buying power the buyer has, the higher the mortgage, the higher the appraised value. It's all connected. So this is a little wordy, but this is an example of what ResNet and the Appraisal Institute have come up with as far as the numbers. If you reduce your energy use by $300 a year, it actually increases your value by $6,000. Not a huge amount, but it's one of the only investments you can do in your house that actually is more than 100%. If you put a new kitchen in, you're lucky to get 35% of, 85% of what you've done. Even in addition is not that high. There's all, Appraisal Institute has all kind of calculation for this. And just recently, about 3 years ago, they have a whole new page about energy efficiency on their appraisal report. So the big thing there is comfort, health, and safety, because that's really what people look for. Just some information from the National Association of Realtors. The listing, they're really encouraging listing agents to put the energy efficiency features in their criteria, and people are taking notice, especially younger people looking for a house that want to have a lower carbon footprint, or concerned about whether or not they can go to the Jersey Shore or their children can go to the Jersey Shore, because it'll be gone if we don't do anything about this. So, just saying. This is the flyer that they sent out. All right, so where do you start? Well, first of all, you schedule a PICO energy assessment with me tonight. That would be the best thing. Or you can, there's a sign-up sheet back there. I am going to give you a code as well. This is recorded, so you can share this code with residents of Radnor, and hopefully everybody will sign up and have an audit done. Get your house up to Energy Star standards, which is very difficult and maybe not so much cost effective, but you can do what you can, and if you need new equipment, that's the time to make the improvement. I'm not saying you go out and just change everything because it's not necessary sometimes, and this is where the auditor comes in. They'll give you a plan to do things first. And then, of course, be conscientious about your energy usage every day. This is actually...
Could you explain what the code that you-
I will at the end. There's a code for when you go on the portal. There's a little... This is my colleague. I want to show you this. Hey. Let's see. It's not cooperating. Well, whatever. It's an advertisement for an energy audit. It shows you what we do in the house, and it's actually pretty good because it goes over everything in the attic, in the basement. All right, so that's basically it. The code is RADTWP 25, and basically gets you $25 off of your assessment. So if you have a quick, it'll be free. And if you have an electric house, it'll be $25. And the only difference is in the electric house, you'll get a blower door test, which is a depressurization of the house. We'll show all the leaks, and we actually put a number on it. The quick is eyed up, and it's basically the same recommendations. However, there's no numbers involved with it. And that's where the contractor comes in. And I'm going to segue to that. And we have a contractor here, Orange Energy Solutions, and he's one of our participating contractors. And he's going to talk to you about energy efficiency in the house and a bunch of other things too, right?
We have a handout here, which is sort of a carbon footprint score. A lot of us have worked on this thing to keep it relevant, but it's a great way to do it with no right or wrong answers, and you'll get to something and you'll go, oh, I never thought of doing that. And it all leads to simpler life, energy conservation, which most dollars saved. So there's that, and then there's a more advanced one that tells you how many dollars we estimate you can save in a year. So feel free to take on these.
Okay, hey, my name is John Kelly. I'm one of the owners of Orange Energy Solutions, and I want to thank Sarah and Robin for inviting Orange to present tonight. And I think Mike definitely was a good segue, and of course, these guys are out in the field. They're your first contact. They're coming in and learning about your house and then getting the recommendations out to my company and the other companies that are participating contractors. So tonight I'm going to talk about how to improve your home's performance and reduce your carbon footprint. I'd like to start off with a question. Does anyone know what the average age of the housing stock of Pennsylvania is? Does anyone want to venture a guess? B? Very good. It is B. 61 years old. We actually have the second oldest housing stock in the U.S. First is Massachusetts, which you can understand. They kind of were the first place to colonize. So the average house is 1958. Energy efficiency was not an important item back in 1958. Probably oil was, I wasn't born then, but I'm assuming oil was 10 cents maybe a gallon. So it really wasn't important for folks to be energy efficient and conscious about their carbon footprint. You guys are focused on that 24%. There's 138 million residential properties in the U.S., and they're broken out as 104 million single-family and 34 million multifamily. This is an important number because we're at the peak of 2006 was the peak year for new construction. We only built 1.6 million units in the U.S. And our major focus was on those new units and making them energy efficient. Really, no one was focused on the 138 million existing homes. Mike mentioned BPI, Building Performance Institute out of Malta, New York. That organization's been around for about 30 years. That first energy efficiency crunch back in the late 70s, early 80s is kind of when they first were founded. And their main focus was on the existing housing stock and trying to make those better performing units. So a lot of houses, and a lot of houses with common problems. I'm assuming as you read down that list, you're probably saying, boy, I got one of those too. I know I just bought, I'm in my 5th home. I actually live in Radnor. And each time I bought that new house, existing house, I incurred these problems too. So I don't feel like you're the only one out there with these. You know, we see high utility bills, we see comfort issues, so we got varying temperatures in different rooms. We got condensation forming on windows in certain rooms, not on others. We might have carbon monoxide issues. We might get frozen pipes. We're the contractor. We're the guy that kind of, where the rubber meets the road, to use a cliche. And our primary customer is new homeowner, believe it or not. Somebody that's been in the house less than 2 years. They buy this gorgeous new home, possibly has new kitchen, new bath, and they get in and they start living there and they realize, wow, I've got this issue and that issue. What do I do? So that's why we get the call, or Clear Results gets the call for the audit. So what is home performance? It's a fairly new industry that focuses on really 4 things: comfort, energy efficiency, health and safety. They're actually intertwined. A house works as a system. And when you go to fix the energy efficiency problem you might be having, you actually end up getting comfort issues fixed. And you actually end up getting possibly some of the health and safety issues also addressed at the same time. This next slide explains, and I'll kind of go through this quick because Mike already did this. We didn't compare slides beforehand, but this is a standard photo that we use quite a bit to describe what's going on in your house. I think, have a second shot up there, and Mike talked a little bit about it, and that is determining what is the, quote, thermal envelope, and it's kind of a technical name. So what it is, in simple terms, is where is the outside versus the inside of the house. So we like to make that determination, and then that helps us work on that house and improving it. The other thing that I'd like to mention about it is, so we are a heating, believe it or not, a heating zone. We have a longer heating season than we do cooling. But we also have three good months of hot summer. This actual stack effect that Mike talked about reverses in the summer. And I'm sure everyone has warm bedrooms. We all do. And that's what happens. The nice hot air in the attic can be as hot as 140 degrees in the summer, reverses and comes down and starts pushing a cold or cooler conditioned air, your AC air, out through the same holes in the bottom. So when you do address those leakages, you're also getting the benefit of summer improvements as well as winter improvements. So how do we fix these problems? I'm going to try and address that in this short period of time that I have, and I'll have a question and answer session at the end, and I'll stay around to answer anyone's questions. Mike talked a little bit about the energy audit. We also perform energy audits. We've been doing it. Orange was founded in 2009, so about a little over 10 years now. And that energy audit involves a detailed interview with the homeowner, because you live in your home. You know your home better than we do. Even though we are building science professionals, we look at the house as a system. We don't know exactly what's going on in your house. You do. And we do a detailed property inspection. We do an air leakage test. And Mike talked a little bit about that. That's a blower door, a picture of a blower door up there. And we set that up and we determine how much leakage there is. And we also use an IR camera to determine where is the leakages. IR is thermographic camera. So when we get a temperature difference from the inside and outside, and we have some really good ones, so we only need about a 5 to 10 degree difference between the outside temperature and the inside temperature to start identifying leaking points with that camera. We also do a combustion appliance test because it's very important that those systems are working well, especially if we're going to come in and tighten your house up, because we can trap carbon monoxide and gases that might be not affecting you because your house was very leaky beforehand. So we are very concerned about combustion safety. And then we do a utility evaluation, and then we develop a comprehensive audit report and proposal for the work to be done. And then we hope you do some level of work, and then we do what's called a test out at the end. We actually go back and do those same combustion safety tests, because this whole process of the audit, the proposal, the contract, the work could be a month, could be 2 months. And things can happen with equipment. As we all know, things break down, things can happen where the changes, the dynamics change. So it also includes that test out. So I like this slide because it talks about the leakiness. So and Mike talked a little bit about that. Today we build it about a 0.35 air changes per hour. That's a new construction. That's where we're trying to meet. So what that means is about a third of the air changes every hour within the house. I have a couple hours above that because we talked about the 1958 house. So the 1958 house averages, we've gone back and we've done about 2,500 audits and retrofits as a company. Goes in at about 0.63. So that says more than half of the air is changing every hour. So you're losing that conditioned air. The next number below is a more current house, like one built in 1980. That's about the average we see. And then you can build a house too tight. I hear that all the time. I don't want to be too tight. In our industry, we say you can't make it too tight, just ventilate right. So when you do get down to those lower levels, and we want you to, ideally, we want you to build a submarine. We want to retrofit and make this thing as tight as possible, because you're going to be the most energy efficient, and you're actually going to have the best indoor air quality. Because what we're going to do is we're going to bring in fresh air through mechanical ventilation once you get down to those lower points. And there's a variety of different ways to do that. There's equipment called energy recovery ventilators, which they do it very energy efficiently. Or you can just put bath fans on that are like Panasonic Whisper Green bath fans. You can put them on a timer and a percentage, so it's running very low, using very low energy, and it'll help bring in that fresh air. So we've been around since 2009. I actually when I became BPI certified in 2008, there were only 60 auditors in the whole state of Pennsylvania. There's probably 60,000 now. So as an owner, we came up with a what we call a 17-step process to improve your house. And I'm going to just touch on that kind of at a high level. And once again, I'll answer any questions you might have in detail afterwards. So we're all BPI certified, and we take an oath. We're professionals, and number one for us is health and safety. So the list of our 17 step are going to be an importance, and those that are going to get the best benefit, the low-hanging fruit, as Mike talked about. So health and safety are our first three areas that we look at. And I can't tell you how many bulk moisture issues we've run into, especially with last year. We had such a wet late summer and fall. We want to get those corrected, and there's many ways to do that, and we help you resolve those or resolve them. You can hire us to resolve them. Ventilation inside. I can't tell you how many times people are like, yeah, I got a bath fan, I've got great ventilation. And we go up in the attic, and the bath fan is vented into the attic. Incorrect. When that's done, you're bringing warm, moist air up into a cold attic space in the winter, and you get condensation forming every day and mold. It needs to be vented out. So then other times, oh yeah, it's vented out, it's laying on the soffit. Oh, it's vented out, it's up the gable vent. Not good either, because soffits and gable vents bring fresh air into the attic. So when you get that plume of moist air right at the soffit, it's getting pushed back in. They need to be vented out through the gable, out through the roof. So we're constantly fixing this. Even in new construction at times, the inspectors aren't catching these things. And we go in brand new homes. Once again, some of our clients are new homeowners, like I told you, in new homes. And we go in and they don't have it vented out properly. So very important to do that. They're the first 3 steps. The next one, I'm going to kind of go quickly because Mike did address these. These are the low flow shower heads, the lighting, the CFL LED lights, programmable thermostats. He had all that in his slides. These are the occupants' changes of your behavior using programmable thermostats. This goes on Vampire Electric, those power loads, all those things that are left on all the time, the Energy Star equipment and so forth. I think he hit that pretty good. So now we're going to go really where Orange rolls up our sleeves and starts doing the actual work. So I remember when I first had this, I first took my BPI certification and I got into my first energy audit and they hired me and my one other guy to do the work. And I remember the instructor telling me the whole time, if you just air seal the attic and do nothing else, you'll get a lower blower door number. And I just couldn't get my head wrapped around it. It just seemed counterintuitive. So one of the clients, we gave them this comprehensive list, and all they could afford is air sealing in the attic. He said it would work. We had a blower door number, so we knew. We did the energy audit. We went in and did a comprehensive air sealing package. I think it ran $1,300, $1,400. Set up the blower door, and lo and behold, we got an 18% reduction. And I'm like, wow, he was right. We didn't do anything in the crawl space. Even though I'm walking around and I see holes, I could see daylight out into the outside. Didn't do anything down there. Didn't put any more insulation. He had R19, 5 inches, 5.5 inches of insulation. Didn't touch it. That's all they could do. And I was like, great. And he said, look, I'm going to save some more money up, and we're going to come, and you're going to do the insulation in the attic next. So actually air seal in the attic, insulate in the attic, as we're telling you, is the first step. Then get the bottom of the house, the band joists, and the leakages down there. And then other areas we find weaknesses, and not everyone has this, is garage ceilings. Many times bedrooms are located up over garages, and I get a call, I just moved in here, and my son's in the bedroom over the garage, and it's 58 degrees, and my thermostat's set at 70. What can you do? Well, we can get into that garage ceiling, and we air seal and insulate that. Chimneys. I can't tell you how many times I've personally, when I bought a house and I had this damper that was mechanical and got black all over me, and I look up and it's always open. So get the top dampers on the chimney. They're a mechanical system which has a cable that comes down. They'll really improve your energy efficiency by doing that. And then basement crawl space windows, step 12. So we just talked about attics. So this is an attic that we went into many years ago, and Mike talked a little bit about that. You see up in the top right corner, that's a chaseway going all the way down to the basement, so that air is leaking, that cold air is coming in and leaking out through the house. The one to the left, top center, that's what's called top plates. So every interior wall has a top plate in it. So warm air in your second floor goes underneath the baseboard and goes up out of the top plate. To the left is, top left, is just the low insulation. We have a stick there that shows the depth. I think it varies from almost 0 on the bottom right of that picture to maybe like 3 or 4 inches. The bottom left is a wall. So that has insulation on it, which is great. But that insulation, that bad insulation, only has half the value when it's not encapsulated on all 6 sides, which is the top, the bottom, the left, the right, and both sides. It needs to be sandwiched. And then it gets its full value. So when you buy insulation that says it's R19 and you don't encapsulate it, you're only getting, my math's correct, 9.5, R9.5. And R value, the higher, the better. So that's a before. Here's an after, the same attic. So we went through and we air sealed as Mike described, and PECO has a rebate program and they rebate up to R38. We've actually been doing R49 for the last 10 years. We've determined R49, which is 17 inches of either, this is a picture of cellulose recycled newspaper, or fiberglass, 17 inches is the right amount. I actually had a guy, he asked for 3 feet. And I said, I'll do whatever you want, but 17 inches is the ideal cost point. That's going to get you the energy efficiency, and that's the right price point. But I'll put 3 feet in if you want. Your gains are not going to equal the cost of it, really. So, and then the last slide on there on the left side is that bad insulation in the wall, in the attic. We come in and we sheathe it and air seal every seam. And that gives you the full R value. Plus, in this case, I think we added a 1-inch piece of sheathing, which has an R5 value, so we increased the value of it. So once again, we're working our way down the steps. We were at step 12, so now we go to step 13. You know, everyone wants high efficiency, and it's great to put a high efficiency system in when it fails. But it's not the spot to start. The spot to start is with your health and safety issues and in the attic. But once you get to the point where you need a new heater, then get a high efficiency system. And then heating, once again, we're heating a heating area. So heat is where you're going to get your biggest savings. And then high efficiency air conditioning, and then your water heater. It doesn't cost a lot to heat hot water. So that's step number 15. We represent a company called Kensington HPP Windows. They're arguably the most efficient residential windows. So I'm going to show you, number 17 is windows and doors. It's the last thing to do. It's the most expensive, and it's not going to, you're not going to gain. They've done such a, they being the window manufacturers, done such a great job manufacturing. Now, if your windows don't work, they don't open, or they're cracked and broken and rotting, you got to replace them. So replace them with the most energy efficient window or door you can get. But don't start at windows and doors. Start at the attic, air sealing and insulating. Work your way down, bottom next. And that's the other, I get calls all the time, I need insulation on my walls. That 1958 house basically has no insulation in the wall. It's 1 inch of sheathing, usually on a masonry surface with plaster on it. It not only has no insulation, there's really no opportunity to insulate unless you take everything down and build a new wall in front of it. But once again, when I was told this 10, 11 years ago now, that all you have to do is the top and the bottom and you'll get energy efficiency, it's believable. Because I can't tell you how many of these boxed brick colonials that are out here and that we've done, and people come back to me and say, I've cut my energy bills in half by just doing my attic and my basement. So you can get those efficiency. And another little bit of scientific information, if you can get still air behind there, meaning you got the band joist at the bottom and the top plate at the top, and you create still air behind that wall, that has an R value. Penn State proved that 1 inch of still air is R3. So you just want to stop the convection, the movement of air around your walls and around from the basement up into the attic. So that was a quick tutorial about home performance. And at this point, I can open it up to questions and hopefully get you an answer, or we can break. I don't know what Robin and Sarah want. I'll be free to answer any question anyone might have.
Question for Don? Curious, if you replace a furnace heater that's 26 years old, what percentage efficiency would humans have today?
So you can still, that probably was, is it exhausted through the chimney? Yeah, so that's about 80% efficient furnace. You can still replace your system with 80% efficient furnace. Now, what I would recommend is at least going to a 96% efficiency. What I find a lot of times in these older homes, especially in Pennsylvania, the chimneys need to be rebuilt, they need to be lined, and that's an additional cost. So rather than getting into that, why don't you get the high efficiency system? And the reason it's high efficiency is because the majority of the energy used to create heat is kept in the furnace and exhausted through PVC pipes, which we cut PVC, cut a hole into the side of the house and exhaust out through 2 to 3 inch PVC pipe. So 96, you can go as high as 98% efficiency. So that way you're getting 98% of the energy you're buying and using to create the heat is going to heating your house, and only 2% is leaving through the exhaust, where 80% is 80% to heat, 20% being exhausted into the environment.
How new is this
The first, I don't know the exact answer, but the first time I saw a high-efficiency system was in the early 90s. So I think it's been around for at least 30 years. The first ones that came out were 90% efficient. And we still see, we have a lot of people replacing the 90% efficients today because the average life on a furnace is about 15 to 18 years. So we're replacing a lot of 90s today. Yeah, so the technology's been around.
How about what I'm going to call the standard hot water heater and some of the new instant hot water heaters to replace them? I know the instants are quite expensive, but I live alone and I only take one shower a day and I wash in cold water and I run the dishwasher once every 4 days. But I hate to have the hot water heater a standard tank. Heating that water 23 hours a day and I'm not taking advantage of it. So how do you balance out?
Yeah, so there is definitely efficiency by doing the the non-tank unit. Once again, you've got to do the analysis, and when I do that for the most part, like a single person, it's like about a 7-year payback is what I'm finding. Not great.
Your hot water tank, unless you buy the extra insurance, is only guaranteed for 5 years. The current ones, let's say.
A hot water-
bought at Lowe's.
Yeah, hot water heater, gas hot water heater should last around 10 years. Electric about 12. But you know, you've got to do the math on that one. It's not a great payback.
Can you talk a little bit about zoning your house to sort of manage where you're heating and, rooms that you're not using as much and how to make that kind of calculation?
Yeah, so zoning is difficult to do once, if it's an existing house. It's easier to do when you're doing a new home and you're putting in all new ductwork, because then you can put the zoning controls in. A lot of your ductwork is behind drywall. It's hard to get to. It's much harder to do with an existing system. So, yeah, I mean, there's definitely energy savings in having a zoning system in your house. But once again, you got to do the cost analysis. It can get expensive to do the more sophisticated zoning systems because you're going to have separate thermostats. You're going to have power. You're going to have a power damper, so that's going to use some energy to open and close to shut off the conditioned air from going to that area.
And if you do have zones, though, you can use programmable thermostats so that you're heating the rooms that you're using and not the ones that you're not, guest room, and you're not using, you can keep that lower. You can
Right. Yeah, so you could do that. You know, with the program, it's tricky with programmable thermostats also. I have one. I have found that I leave mine consistent, I'll be honest with you, unless I'm going to be away for a long time, unless I'm out of the house for 3, 4, 5 days, because there's such a cost to drop the temperature and then bring it back up to satisfactory temperature. So when you start doing that analysis, then you start realizing that it's not very cost effective to do it on a daily basis. I mean, minimal degree changes, 2, 3 degrees, it's okay, but if you drop it down to 60 and then you want it to come back up to 70, especially in high efficiency systems, they're variable speed. You're going to have them kick into the high mode. They like to run, and I say they, like they're a person, but they want to run in that low mode consistently all day. That's where you get your best energy efficiency versus having them go into 80 miles an hour for 10 minutes.
So does that mean if you keep your house, at least in my house, I have the ability to keep the fan on 24 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
I use a Nest and it's 65 to 60, so it's not that big a drop. So is it inefficient to let that fan circulate the air, or is that?
I think that's a good idea. That's going to get you consistency throughout the house. And especially if you have a high efficiency system, because technically that fan will run in that low mode. You hardly hear it running, right? There's usually variable speed. One, even the lower, like the 92% efficient furnaces have 2 speeds. You know, some of them have more than 2 speeds today. Yep. Yeah, yeah, there's the yep. So that's a good idea, especially if you're noticing, if you haven't done any of the energy efficient work and you're noticing inconsistencies in rooms. To leave the fan running, you'll get more consistency, better distribution of air.
I have another question about, we saw this at one of the energy forums, it was at Haverford College, there was, a booth that was showing a solar operated, attic fan. So it was exhausting the hot air from the attic, you know, powered by solar. And the argument was that that was really reducing the burden on your house to cool all that air because the attic is so hot. I was just curious if fits into some of the.
So attic fans, I'd rather not see an attic fan because an attic fan, if it's running, is going to depressurize your house. So let's say you don't do any of the home performance work and you've got a 1958 Colonial that's got 5 inches of insulation and all the typical openings, and that fan runs, it's going to pull your warm air out of the house. It's going to accelerate that stack effect that Michael and I both showed you on the house. So I'd rather have a natural flow in the attic, which is soffit vents and ridge vent or gable vents, because that's going to naturally go. And at the same time, we do calculations for attic venting when we're doing our energy audits. We want to make sure there's enough of it. But just think about it. The numbers they come up with are average leakage. So the average leakage in a 1970 house, the average, they called a free air, they have a calculation number of square inches per the square foot of the attic. There's a formula. But if we come in and we air seal your house, and when we do a deep retrofit, we get about a 40% reduction is what we average, and air leakage reduction. That's what Orange is averaging. Then you're going to need less ventilation in your attic because there's less warm air coming up in the winter and contacting those cold surfaces. Now, we still calculate on the standard formulas, but the bottom line is you're just going to need less. So I don't like fans. Whole house fans are a whole nother story. Whole house fans, you know, they were great in the 1950s. They're our worst enemy because they're a huge opening into the attic space, and your warm air in the winter is just going to pour up. And in the summer, when that's not running and you have central AC going on, the hot air is going to come right down through that. So we either like to remove that and close that off or create some robust insulated box that can be put over it when it's not being used in the winter or the hottest times in the summer.
You'll find if you have proper air sealing and insulation in the attic, you won't notice it. It creates negative pressure out there and pulls your air conditioning out into the attic, which actually costs more than
Yeah, we've kind of touched on it, but the house is a system and it's fairly complicated, but just by we get a call for comfort a lot. That's the number one reason. And then people, you know, everyone thinks it's energy efficiency. Yeah, that's important. But then they say, wow, my energy bill is really low. Wow, I don't have all those mold and moisture issues I used to have. So just by doing the air sealing and insulation, you're improving all those areas. It really makes the house a better system.
You were talking about your condo association replacing your heat pumps.
Well, yeah, I did talk with them about that. So it's, yeah, so I'm sure that some of our heat pumps are coming towards the end of their life. And so I talked to them about maybe being able to standardize the heat pumps. But I'll get into
They would probably, we do, the majority of our work is in single-family homes, but we've also done multifamily work. So complexes like that, because you described it, the St. David's condominiums, would benefit by doing air sealing and attic insulation, or at least having someone evaluate them, because they're what we call garden apartments technically. So we've done a lot of work in garden apartments, and Pico does work. Mhm. Yep, and it would probably, like I told you, the government standards are continually, the numbers going up. So seasonal energy efficiency rating, SEER, which a lot of us have heard. So the higher, the better. So today you can't buy anything less than 14 SEER in energy efficiency, in either a heat pump or a AC unit, central AC unit. Pico starts their rebates at 16 SEER. And the higher the SEER, the higher the rebates. I mean, they'll go up into the 20s now, which is extremely efficient. So it'd be good to almost set a standard, too, if you were concerned about, because there's rebates. There's rebates once you get to the 16 SEER. So it makes sense.
First, though, the envelopes of condos should be addressed first. Because it's water operations and efficiency, and the envelope is first, and then we start.
Yeah, remember step number 15, I think, was the heater, right? Or yeah, something like that, right?
How old are the units?
Well, they were built in the 50s. 52. 52. They were condos converted in the 80s.
So that would be sort of target function.
Right, well, one of the issues is that some of the units are occupied by owners and some are occupied by renters. So, to get that mix of people to agree, because it wouldn't be a condominium association that take on. It would be individual owners.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's a little complicated, but I don't think it's beyond the realm of possibility.
Yeah, the other issue you'd run into, which we see with heat pumps, I can tell the story. A gentleman down in Marion, he was Marion Station, a retired professor, called me up and he said, my electric bill, I think the house is 2,500 square feet. It's not a large house. He had just moved in, once again, new homeowner, and he said, my bill just came in and it was $1,400 electric bill. And I said, Bob, and just use his first name, Bob, let me check your heat pump out. So he was heating his house on the resistive, the actual outdoor unit, which is the most efficient part of a heat pump, had failed. It was 25 years old. Refrigerant had escaped. It was gone. And he was running on backup resistive heat, which is the same thing as that little space heater that was, what was that running? Now I think it's heating the whole house. So that's why it was 1,400. He now runs with a high efficiency 19 SEER system. He's running about $200 a month all year round AC heating. So that is where a piece of equipment moves up from number 15 to one of your higher priorities. When the outdoor heat pump has failed and you're working on resistive heat only. That's the most expensive way to heat a house, by far, by far. It's like 5 times more than natural gas. Yeah, we have a chart. We actually have a chart that I could share with you. I could send it once I get your email, that actually shows you the different forms of energy, natural gas. We even have a cord of wood. And then the level of efficiency of the system, the geothermal we have on there, mini splits, heat pumps. And we can show you what it costs to generate 1 million BTUs. Sounds like a lot. 1 million BTUs is not a lot of heat. It's like, I kind of know, when we change that, when Pico's prices change, we adjust it quarterly. So I think it was like 1 million BTUs with a high efficiency natural gas, like $11 to generate 1 million BTUs. And on that strip heater, it's like $50. So you can see why it would be $1,400 to heat that house. And then there's other sources of ways to take electricity and generate heat that are very efficient, geothermal being one of the most efficient. But it's not necessarily the most cost-effective for everyone. Any other questions? I'll stick around a little bit afterwards, too, if anyone has something they'd like to discuss.
Lots of good information and tips and
Thank you.
priorities.
You're welcome.
Then, Sarah, one of the things is we heard about, you want to announce your program?
Just going to close that.
Thank you. I just want to announce on behalf of the League of Women Voters, the Radnor Conservancy, Ready for 100, and the Township, we're doing a program next Thursday evening, November 7th at 7 p.m., and it's going to be right here again, and the topic is the problem with plastics, and it will include the impact on climate as well as health impacts to you and your family. So we hope to have everybody here. Our speaker will be Lisa Ann Hamilton, who's the lead author of a recently released Plastics and Climate Report highlighting the sources of greenhouse gases at each stage of the plastic production life cycle. So I'm sure she'll be full of good information, and we hope to see you all here. Thank you. Yes. That's again November 7th, and that's going to be here at 7 p.m. right here at the Radnor Township building. And we hope you'll all be here because I think she is a very renowned speaker, and her expenses are being provided by a Heinz Foundation grant through the League of Women Voters Education Fund. So when you get somebody who you're paying a fee for, provided by a grant, you know it's going to be good. Thank you.